Life of David Livingston, Part 49. The Negroid Race, Comprehending the Negroes, Hotentos, and Algatos, are, it is claimed by many scientists, the most ancient of all types of mankind. And since their appearance on Earth, vast geographical changes have taken place. Continents have become ocean, and sea has become land. The Negroes, says Lubbock, are essentially a non-navigating race. They build no ships, and even the canoes of the Fijians are evidently copied from those of the Polynesians. Now, what is the geographical distribution of the race? They occupy Africa, south of Sahara, which neither they nor the rest of the true African fauna ever have crossed. And though they do not occur in Arabia, Persia, Hindustan, Siam, or China, we find them in Madagascar and in the Andaman Islands, now not in Java, Sumatra, Borneo, but in the Malaya Peninsula, in the Philippine Islands, New Guinea, the New Hebrides, New Caledonia, the Fiji Islands, and in Tasmania. This remarkable distribution is perhaps most easily explicable on the hypothesis that since the Negroid race came into existence, there must have been an immense tract of land, or a chain of islands, stretching from the eastern coast of Africa right across the Indian Ocean, and secondly, that the sea then occupied the area of the present great the sea that then occupied the area of the present great desert. In whatever manner, however, these facts are to be explained, they certainly indicate the race is one of great antiquity. It is manifest, says Baldwin in his prehistoric nations, that Africa at a remote period was a great theater of great movements and mixtures of peoples and races, and that its interior countries had then a closer connection with the great civilizations of the world than at any time during the period called historical. It is the opinion of the writer that the Kushite race, the Ethiopians of Scripture, appeared first in the work of civilization, and that in remote antiquity that people exerted a mighty and widespread influence in human affairs, whose traces are still visible from farther India to Norway. Nor is he by any means alone in the opinion that the Carthaginians, ages ago, sent their ships across the Atlantic to the American continent. The Kushites, or original Ethiopians, originated in Arabia, but their descendants are still found in northern Africa and Egypt and Morocco. Of this race, the Taurics, the robbers of the great desert, to this day among the most magnificent specimens of physical man to be found anywhere on the globe, the final solution of these problems of the geographical status of Africa and the great antiquity of man can but be the greatest interest to all thoughtful persons. Unquestionably, their solution will be greatly hastened should Dr. Livingston succeed in the great enterprise upon which he is now engaged, and soon make known to the world the true sources of the Nile. His success therein would stimulate endeavor, study, exploration, and it is to be hoped comprehension and systematic surveys of the continent and evidences of whose civilization in remote ages lie buried among the debris and countless centuries, or of countless centuries. We know from the imperfect investigations which have already been made that cities have been engulfed by the sands of the Sahara. We know that vast changes have taken place in the physical structure of the continent of Africa and of the world since the Negro race first appeared. It is not improbable, therefore, that when for so many ages beasts of prey and savage tribes have occupied the land oppressed with heat and burdened with many ills, there may yet be found evidences of former civilization that and power in greatest possible contrast to present barbarism and national weakness. And who shall say, that when the face of the continent was changed, whether by a great convulsion or by a gradual process, some of the people did not migrate northwards across the Mediterranean and populate the continent, which has since become the abode of the highest civilization and the greatest intellectual culture? Who shall say that these races of remote antiquity were not possessed with a culture and arts and literature, placing them very high in the scale of civilization? Within the historic period, those nations had passed away which were the acknowledged parents of modern culture and art. The power and veracity of the human mankind, reason, eloquence, poetry, were most sublimely illustrated by the Greeks, whose works still remain to benefit and instruct mankind. Yet the freedom and power of this wonderful people have for more than 20 centuries been annihilated. The people, in this eloquent dictation of Macaulay, have degenerated into timid slaves, and language and language into barbarous jargon, and the beautiful temples of Athens have been given up to the successive depredations of Romans, Turks, Scotchmen. The vast empire of Rome has passed entirely away within a few centuries. She had herself annihilated Carthage, leaving nothing, as we have seen, of arts, literature, institutions, of a people whose ships have sailed on every wave from the Hellespont to the Baltic, and not improbably, from the Mediterranean to the delta of the Mississippi. Other great nations are also known to have passed away or been destroyed, the nature of their civilization and institutions being left to conjecture based upon a few moments, a few literary remains preserved by foreign writers. She's talking about the Odyssey. It being once established that man existed ages before what was commonly called the beginning of the historic period, it would be simply logical, considering many national destructions which have occurred during the historic period, to conclude, by analogy, what races of remote antiquity flourished and passed away, leaving no sign, which have been yet discovered, and their power which have been yet discovered of their power and civilization. It is evident the historian Malachi thinks it not improbable such may be the fate of England, and he expressly states in a well-known passage that the time may come when only a single naked fisherman may be seen in the river of the naked fishermen may be seen in the river of the 10,000 masts. It is difficult, if not impossible, for mankind entirely to overcome the tendency to decay. We shall presently see that Africa is a field upon which must soon be decided a great issue of political, social importance, an issue which involves the absolution of polygamy, domestic slavery, the suppression of the foreign slave trade. From what has begun before this volume, it will have been seen that two are likely to be most conclusively demonstrated: the vast age of the world and great antiquity of man, and the nature of his origin. In comparison of the settlement of this issue and the solution of these problems of science, even the discovery of the true source of the Nile may be regarded as unimportant, except for the reason that Dr. Livingston's great achievement will arouse other men of science and similar sacrificed labors and fortitude. Thus Africa is found to present another remarkable contrast for our contemplation. For while civilization is there at a lower ebb than any other ground division on the globe, For while civilization is there at a lower ebb than any other grand division of the globe, the highest intellectual efforts of the most astute thinkers of the times of turning their best efforts thitherward, in the confident hope of greatly enlarging the sphere of human knowledge, and of extending the triumphs of science and civilization.